It may be one of the clearest cinematic representations of the ego thought system that A Course in Miracles describes. The entire film is built around inner narration. That's the key. Violet exposes the constant commentary mechanism running beneath ordinary life. Self-judgment, anticipation, image management, fear of rejection, social strategy, identity maintenance, performance anxiety. Would call this the ego thought system, the manufactured interpreter that continuously narrates reality through fear and separation. What makes the film powerful is that the voice is not portrayed as evil in an obvious dramatic sense. It's familiar, practical, protective, rational sounding. That's psychologically accurate. The ego rarely announces itself as destruction. It presents itself as management. Stay safe. Don't embarrass yourself. Control perception. Be liked. Don't fail. Protect your image. The film externalizes this inner machinery brilliantly, and Violet gradually begins noticing the voice is not identical to her. That realization is foundational in both meditation traditions and ACIM, because the ego survives through unconscious identification. The moment awareness notices, I am hearing this thought instead of this thought is me, space opens. Not full awakening necessarily, but disidentification begins. The movie is deeply about self-concept. Violet has built an identity structure shaped by trauma, approval-seeking, emotional suppression, and adaptation. She moves through social and professional environments trying to maintain coherence while inwardly fragmented. Teaches that the personality self is essentially a compensatory construct, a mask attempting to solve the imagined problem of separation. And the exhausting part is the ego's solution creates the suffering it claims to solve. The more Violet obeys the fear voice, the more disconnected she becomes from spontaneity, intuition, honesty, and aliveness. That's important. The ego promises protection, but produces constriction. One of the strongest IM parallels is the shift from externally referenced identity to inner guidance. Throughout the film, there's a growing tension between the conditioned fear voice and a quieter intuitive knowing. Frames this as the difference between ego and Holy Spirit. Not as supernatural theatrics, but as two interpretive systems. One voice contracts, one relaxes, one reinforces performance, one allows presence, one is rooted in fear of loss, one in trust. The film also handles trauma carefully. This matters because spiritual teachings can sometimes be misused to bypass psychological reality. Violet does not simply say, your thoughts aren't real, so transcend them. Instead, it shows how deeply embodied conditioning shapes perception and behavior. That's more mature spiritually. At its healthiest, does not deny psychological process. It illuminates the interpretive framework beneath it. Otherwise, there is no world becomes dissociation instead of healing. Violet's healing comes not through becoming spiritually grandiose, but through increasing honesty. She starts risking authenticity, speaking more truthfully, feeling discomfort directly, disappointing expectations, allowing uncertainty, loosening image management. That is very aligned with ACIM's movement toward defenselessness. Defenselessness is not passivity. It means no longer organizing life primarily around protecting a fabricated self-image. And there's another subtle layer. The fear voice often speaks in the language of future catastrophe. If you do this, everything will collapse. The ego lives in predictive anxiety. But when Violet actually follows deeper intuition, reality becomes more alive, relational, and fluid than the voice predicted. That's one of the ego's great exposures. Its prophecies are often inherited fear loops, not truth. The visual style of the film reinforces this too. The world often feels muted, constrained, fragmented, as if perception itself is narrowed by internal commentary. As the grip loosens, experience becomes more immediate. Not perfect, not fantasy, but more real. And perhaps the deepest ACM resonance is this. The movie is not fundamentally about defeating a dark voice. It is about remembering that awareness itself exists prior to the narration. The ego says, you are the story. Quietly answers, you are the awareness in which the story appears. And healing begins the moment that distinction becomes experiential rather than merely philosophical.